Hello, I'm Anne-Marie Mediwake.
Hi, I'm Lindsey Deluce.
And I'm Kelsey McEwen.
Welcome to CTV Your Morning, the podcast.
Today on the podcast, we have Chris Murphy and Jay Ferguson from Sloan. They join us to talk about their upcoming tour and their new album. Also, Team Canada sprinter Jerome Blake joins us. And we're going to take a deep dive on how Gen Z is leading a religious revival.
We appreciate having you with us today, and join us live every weekday, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 to 10 a.m. Atlantic on CTV CTV News Channel and on your CTV News app.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for welcoming us into your ears, your speakers, wherever you may be listening. We have a lot of great conversations coming up today, including a look about groundbreaking trials that have started treating Huntington's disease for the first time ever.
That conversation is going to bring a lot of hope to so many Canadians and their families. I love it when we get to deep dive into health stories with really positive breakthroughs.
Me too. We also speak with Ian McEwan, whose new novel is called What We Can Know. His novel Atonement was a huge bestseller.
Yeah, and I think this one will be as well. It has incredible reviews from critics. Two things stand out. The first is an observation from the book that these times that we're living in could be the good old times, and we don't even know it. Based on kind of the stories of the news every day, it can feel like it's not the good old times. He makes the case for it being that. He also talked about how stories about the future are actually stories about today. So it's a really thoughtful conversation. It is coming up shortly. But first, Lindsey talks about the band that Teddy Wilson calls Canada's Beatles. Here are Sloan's Chris Murphy and Jay Ferguson.
This band has been a Canadian institution for more than 30 years. Oh, so good. Sloan has been rocking since the early 90s. The Juno Award winners have released their latest album. It is called Based on the Bestseller. Sloan is about to start their cross-Canada tour. And you're stopping by here first, which I love. Chris Murphy and Jay Ferguson are joining us in studio this morning. Great to have you both. Great to meet you both.
Yes, good morning. Yes.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
Nice to see you. Can we go back to the beginning? We were just talking about Halifax off camera.
Yes, yeah.
Because let's take us back to, what, 1991?
91 we're starting, yeah.
You're starting. How did it start? How'd you guys come together?
Gosh, Chris and I had played in bands before that, like in the late, like we had played in bands in high school, and then we started playing in university together in a band that didn't really go very far.
What was the band name at the
time?
time?
The band was called Carney Lake Road, and if anybody from Halifax will
Yeah.
know Carney Lake Road.
I had the road sign.
Yeah.
A friend of mine stole it, and so it's a terrible name, but we were good. We were one of the better bands in Halifax.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the album. This is your 14th. Does that surprise you when I say
North
14?
and Roby to our 14th album.
Yeah, it's so cool. And speaking of cool, can I show everybody the cover?
Oh, yeah.
And you saw a little sneak peek. So look at the cover. It is a movie poster, right?
Yeah, well, that's not
That's
the
not
cover.
it. That's not the cover.
But
But it's behind.
in behind
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
poster that we made. It's supposed to be a movie poster, and then
Yeah.
then
There
the
it is.
album
There we go.
cover itself is a photo of the poster. So one of the gags that we wanted to do, we didn't want to have any text on the. We didn't want to add any text to the photo. So all of the text that you need has been photographed. So based on this is supposed to be for a movie called Sloan, and the byline is based on the bestseller. So that is the title of the record.
So how does that happen? Like, so you're sitting around, you're like, okay, I've got an idea. Like, how does that form, this idea?
Gosh, I don't know. Chris had been working on some artwork for the album that kind of looked like a movie poster. And I love sort of manufacturing tactile things. And he sort of thought, okay, well, let's manufacture the movie poster itself, fold it, hang it up at a theater, and photograph it.
Cool.
So it just sort of, whatever. We have time on our hands.
And it
Thank goodness you do,
It gave
though.
us the excuse to make movie trailers
Yeah.
to sort of promote
Yeah.
the record. So as these songs have been coming out ahead of the record, we've been making a silly movie trailer for each of them.
Here's one of them, right?
And
Guys, what is
Look at this.
happening? What is
well,
happening?
it's supposed to be like, it's kind of like, it's a pathetic, low budget, kind of pre-Star Wars sci-fi.
Kind of like Logan's Run. Does anybody remember?
We're just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so
There
we're
we
just
go.
like
Okay, yeah.
running around running around U of T.
This is hilarious.
Yeah, so
Okay, when you were shooting this, were people like, what is happening?
a little bit,
Yes.
Yeah, so we went to the Robarts Library, and this is another one we had the sci-fi one. This is kind of like the horror movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Freddy Krueger character who wakes. This poor young woman is waking up, and this guy's turned up super loud. And we're just doing genre jokes. But anyway, we just thought it was kind
I
of
just
fun.
love your process as a band. What's so cool about the four of you? I mean, you all write, you all sing, you all play multiple instruments.
Yes.
So, speaking of process, when it comes to putting an album together, what does that look like? Because all of you do all the things.
I don't know, everybody kind of has their own, because everybody's a singer and songwriter in our band, you kind of get your own 25% share of the record, and you can kind of do what you want, you know, and you can sort of, like, as Chris would say, solicit ideas from other people, like, do you like this song, or do you have an idea for this? And, you know, you can choose to accept that or not. And if you just don't have enough songs, then usually someone else has another extra song on the go. So it's very democratic in a way.
It's democratic. It's a democratic experiment. I would argue, unlike any other band, where we're really sharing the space, and sometimes you can tell that not that we don't get along, but we encourage we encourage the compilation nature of, like, just songs that don't belong together back to back. We find that fun.
And it works.
Sure.
And it's fun for us. It was really fun for me to meet both of you today.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Fresh off a silver medal win, Team Canada athlete Jerome Blake is on a hot streak. The recent win was in the men's 4x100 meter relay at this year's World Athletic Championships, alongside teammates Andre DeGrasse, Brendan Rodney, and Aaron Brown, who all won gold together. You'll remember at last year's Olympics. That was a very exciting moment. This year has brought Jerome record-breaking times, some personal bests, earning him the nickname Canada's fastest man of 2025. And he slowed down enough to join us in studio this morning. Welcome to your morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Why did
Appreciate
you
it.
laugh when I said you were on a hot streak?
You know, it's one of those things where, as a track and field athlete, you don't really think about it like that. So for me, it's funny hearing it. So it's definitely made me smile.
Listen, you've had a really incredible year. So congrats, first of all.
Thank you.
Not just with the win with the team, but for you personally, you've become the fourth Canadian sprinter to go sub 20 in the 200 meters, and you now hold Canada's fastest time for 100 meters for this year.
Yeah,
So,
and the 200 meters as well. So both of them.
so both at 1 and
Yes.
200.
Yes.
Double congrats. What clicked for you this season?
I think the confidence. You know, track and field is one of those things where, like, the more you believe in yourself, the easier it is to do things that you typically can't really tell yourself you can do. So for me, it's just the confidence I've built this year with my coaching staff and just everyone else around me. So it definitely helped a lot.
And the gold and silver medal doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't.
Listen, I want to ask you about chasing a personal best.
Right.
Donovan Bailey, we know, has held the 100-meter world record since 1996. And you've said your goal, your personal goal, is to beat that time, which, a reminder, is 9.84 seconds.
Right.
You're still chasing this?
Of course. I mean, one of those things, having, like, really big goals definitely helps you a lot, you know, and definitely motivates you to, and push you to actually work towards something.
Is that always in your mind, every run, every practice, that time?
No, it's not there. But because I know I haven't really done the runs that I feel like I can do to really put myself in that spot yet, so I'm just slowly working towards it.
You've worked with this relay team for years, and you made your Olympic debut with them back in 2020.
Yes.
You won gold last year in Paris, which was amazing to see. So how have you worked to build the trust and the chemistry with this group of guys?
It's one of those things where a lot of people don't really see it, right? Because there is so much more people behind the scenes. Like, I was one of those guys who was there watching from 2019 all the way up until the Olympics in 2020. So for me, just to be able to be a part of that team and just be out there with the guys and understand that, like, it's more than just myself. And I know the amount of hours that we put into it together, and, you know, the amount of time that's spent off the track and on the track, reviewing videos and, you know, sitting up late at night, like playing dominoes and hanging out. That we build that trust that we have now, so it's more like a brotherhood in a sense.
Nice.
And there's more guys there that a lot of people don't really see, of Dwayne Asamoto and Malachi Murray and Eli as a GB. So there's guys there that they're waiting in the wings, and they're just as hungry as we are. So it's definitely going to be a good thing to see them when they get the opportunity, what they do with that as well. So for us, it's definitely a good thing just to, you know, continue to work and develop as a team. So there's more guys in the back that when they come out, everyone's going to be just as surprised as, you know, when I joined the team in 2020 and what we did at the Olympics.
You know what I like, Jerome? I like that you talk about your competition with a smile on your face, because you see them all as everybody coming up.
Right.
I like that. You know, you talked about watching, and you weren't always a sprinter. Part of that time watching, you were in hurdles and in other track events.
Yeah.
Now, you're the fastest man at 100 meter and 200 meter in Canada this year. How did you make the switch?
Just having people who believe in you. So my first coach ever when I moved to Kelowna, Pat, she saw me and she said, I think you could be a sprinter, and we spent years working at it. And, you know, and from there, it just developed and it clicked. And we continued to work at it, and to where I'm at now, just being one of the best athletes in the world and just continue to grow.
This is incredible. Doctors in the UK have successfully treated Huntington's disease for the first time ever. The disease is a devastating degenerative illness that runs in families. It's caused by a single gene defect that slowly kills brain cells, leading to dementia, paralysis, and then death. For more on this cutting-edge treatment, I am joined by Edward Wild. He is the Associate Director of the UCL Huntington's Disease Center and Senior Investigator on the trial. He joins us from London this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
So walk us through, how does the treatment work?
So the treatment is a gene therapy, which means that it is a one-off treatment, a one-shot treatment. Once it's been administered, it doesn't need to be given again, and the treatment remains active for the person's life. So what we do is it's a 12-hour, roughly, neurosurgical operation, and this gene therapy is injected directly into the substance of the brain, an important part of the brain in Huntington's disease called the striatum, which is really important for movement and thinking skills, which all are affected by Huntington's disease. So once the gene therapy has been injected into the brain, it contains a virus, a harmless virus, which in turn contains a stretch of DNA that has been specifically designed to accomplish one thing, which is to tell neurons to make less of the harmful protein that causes Huntington's disease. So we're not editing the person's own genome, we're adding an extra little bit of DNA, which essentially reprograms the neurons not to make as much of the protein that is harming them. And it's all a technique that stems from the discovery of the Huntington's disease gene in 1993. But it's taken this long really to turn it into a treatment that is meaningful and actually alters the clinical progression of Huntington's disease.
It's really incredible. So this treatment, this surgical procedure, I understand, slowed progress of the disease by 75% in patients after 3 years. What did that look like for patients in terms of their symptoms?
Well, thank you for putting that number on the screen, because honestly, I keep having to check that I'm not dreaming when I hear the 75% figure. This is the first time anything has worked to slow the progression of HD. And the fact that it's a 75% slowing of progression with the first thing that works is just beyond our wildest dreams. I should say diplomatically, and for the record, I'm based in the UK, but this was a multi-site study, multinational study at sites in the US and Poland as well as the UK. So it's a true international collaboration. What that means for patients is that they could have years or decades of either high quality life with minimal disability, or if we can get the drug, the gene therapy, delivered to patients who have the mutation that causes HD but don't yet have symptoms, then we could be in the business of preventing or delaying onset. And with a 75% slowing of progression, if that's done early enough, we could end up in a situation where for the first time our patients can look forward to a healthy, happy old age.
Edward, this is incredible. And you mentioned this is not a dream for you. This is real. What is this moment like for you to see the success of this treatment?
For me personally, I've been working in HD for almost exactly 20 years. It's 19 years and 11 and a half months. And it's a week of coincidences. It's also almost exactly 10 years since I gave the first dose of a Huntington lowering drug, a drug that lowers the production of the protein. And so it's been a long journey for me, but that is nothing compared to how long families affected by HD have been struggling with this illness from generation to generation with no hope. And what really this news represents is the first result that finally rewards all of the work that the community of families has put in to understanding the disease and helping us to develop and test these treatments. It's a great day for the HD community, and this result belongs to everyone.
And when do you expect this treatment could become available?
So the Unicure, who make the drug, are already in intense discussions with the FDA, the US regulator, and it's in my opinion, I don't want to get ahead of anything, but in my opinion, it's very likely that the FDA will approve that drug, and that could happen as early as the first few months of 2026.
Congratulations to you and the entire team, senior investigator on the trial. Thanks for walking us through.
Thank you.
Well, who knew one not-so-little poem could cause such chaos? Author Ian McEwan is back with a new novel. Here's what we know about what we can know. It starts with a dinner party and a poem. It jumps ahead by a century. There's mystery, there's romance, there's a scholarly pursuit, a little bit of climate change, and a lot to keep you entertained. And it's a pleasure to welcome Ian McEwan back into our studios this morning. Great to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So we need to know more about this poem. Let's start where the book does. There's a birthday dinner and a poem written from a husband to a wife as a birthday gift. There was one copy, no drafts or rough copies. So can you set up the story for us?
Yep. So the year is 2014. Friends and family gather round to hear a great poet. His name is Francis Blundy. Read a poem, and as you say, he's made sure there's only one copy. He's written a fair copy onto some vellum. He reads the poem aloud. There's people are sort of listening and half listening. They've had a bit to drink. And hands it to his wife, birthday present, and we do not know what has happened. And the people around the table talk about that poem. Someone writes about it. It goes down through the ages. There's a very, very famous poem onto which people project their wishes and fears and aspirations. And my young scholar is determined to find it. So in a sense, it's a quest. What is this magnificent poem that no one has read, that everyone keeps talking about?
The book jumps around in time. The scholar that you mentioned, it's just over 100 years later that he's investigating this poem. So as an author, what does the jump in time allow you to do with your writing?
It gives him a kind of telescope onto our time, really. All books about the future are really about the present. And he is full of despair at many of the things we are doing and not doing, but at the same time he has deep envy for our time. We still have glorious forests, so we still have a great deal of social energy. We're great risk takers. We've put a golden telescope 1 million miles out into space. Our food, at least in the first world, developed world, is unbelievably tasty. And it's poetry and literature, movies, everything about it. He just loves it. He's obsessed by our times. And I guess I'm trying to suggest we have a lot of treasures. Mm-hmm. And we're really standing at a forking path. Can we keep those treasures or do we let them go?
There's a sense when you're reading the book that we're in the good old times and we don't even know it.
These are the good old times, yeah.
And this novel isn't necessarily a climate change novel per se, but you do touch on the subject. So what is your best approach? How do you engage people meaningfully without them feeling like they're in a climate change lesson?
I think warning people about climate change through a novel that's over. It's already here. We're in it. It's happening. Nobody needs warming. Even climate change skeptics know it's happening. They don't have to look at the weather or, what's going on around the world. So it has to be a kind of background. And also, you've got to have a personal story. You can't just give a blizzard of data and, science and glaciology and oceanography and so on. So it's quite hard to write a climate change novel. It has to be in the background and let other things take their course.
Take me through the thought process of how you picked the title. The title, What We Can Know. What does that mean for you?
Well, the novel really is about how we are wedged between the dead of the past, about whom we know a little, and the unborn of the future, who will look back on us when we are the ghosts of the past. And I'm trying to get the past, present, and future into some kind of dialogue with each other. And getting some angle on us and what we're about is, I thought the future would be a wonderful place to stand, and look back. So my narrator has a wife, a partner who has a much more skeptical view of us. She says, you romanticize the past. Your head's always in there and you don't realize how awful it was. And he says, but you're ignoring all the wonderful things they did. So they have a kind of running dialogue too. And I guess, somewhere in the center of this novel is a very personal story, various love affairs and compromises and betrayals, but right in the center is a crime. And how that is dealt with is also belongs to the notion of what we can know about others.
About others. Well, my present is sitting here with you on the sofa, but my past over the weekend was nose deep in this novel. So Ian McEwan, it is a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you for this new book.
Well, thanks for having me on.
You're listening to Your Morning, the podcast, where we bring you some of our best conversations from the show every week. Join us live on CTV every weekday, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 to 10 a.m. Atlantic on CTV CTV News Channel, and on your CTV News app.
I know many of us can relate. Your kids or grandkids come home from school, you ask how their day was, and you get a one-word reply. But did you know that response is actually telling you more than you think? Vivian Meraki joins me in studio this morning with tips on how we can get our kids to open up after school. Vivian, great to have you back.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, great to have you. Yeah. After a long day at school, some kids come home and they are silent. They don't have anything to say. They don't feel like talking. So what does that actually tell us?
So it's very common. And I think the way that we can think about it is actually how we feel after a long day at work. Oftentimes, we might not want to talk about our day or get right into it. So something that I really suggest to parents and clients of mine is just give them that space, give them that decompression time, a little bit of time, maybe it's a snack or a cozy moment for them to kind of settle in their nervous systems, re-regulate with you, and then you can start asking the questions.
I'm a talker, and so it's hard. Like, I feel like I'm almost like a bad mom if I
No.
don't immediately jump in and be like, hey, how was your day? And I appreciate that that's not how all of my kids express themselves. Yeah. You say helping your kids to open up more starts with creating the environment for that at home. You mentioned a snack, you mentioned maybe reading the room a little bit. How do we do this as parents?
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's not something we necessarily think about. We think of safety as having a roof over their heads, food in their bellies. But I like to think about it as emotional safety from a nervous system perspective. And there's a lot that we can do about it, and it's all about building connection rituals through the day. One of the most common ones that I recommend to my clients is actually my 10-minute heart-to-heart. And what this is whatever it is, set aside 10 minutes per child, especially because often we get so busy and we get caught up in, sometimes a bit of guilt that we're not spending enough time. But it's not about the quantity, it's the quality. So 10 minutes per child, no distractions, no devices, and you sit down and the whole objective is to understand them and get to know them. So ask about their feelings. What happened today? What was your favorite thing? What's something that surprised you? Ask for their reflections. And then as you ask those questions, connect with them and help to support them, through whatever it is that comes up for them, and just be there for them to understand and connect.
I love specific questions like that because the how was your day, it's easy to just say, oh, good.
Yeah.
But if you say, like, who did you eat lunch with today?
Yeah.
It gives them a moment to go back to it. And then maybe that spurs a little bit more conversation.
Exactly.
Why is the language we use with kids so important at kind of guiding their responses to us?
Yeah, so the language you use is important because a lot of times we may actually unintentionally be eroding the very emotional safety we want for them out from under them. So a lot of what I suggest is, for example, when we ask questions, we swap out why. So why did something happen versus what? Why invites a sense of almost judgment, justification, whereas what asks for curiosity and description. So what happened versus why did that happen? Why'd you do that?
Oh, they do sound
right?
different.
It feels different, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And then also observing and reflecting to them what you see. So, or what you perceive their feeling to be. And then they can confirm for you. So for example, something like, that must have been hard. Just something like that. It validates, you're reflecting to them a perspective. And then as you reflect to them, something that you can also do is just really anchor for them as well.
Sometimes when kids come home, they've had a day. And it's met with like a lot of physical release of that, like slamming doors or frustration. How do we deal with that as parents? What should our response be?
Yeah, so I think the main thing with a lot of those kind of behaviors is that can be a real signal that their nervous system is overwhelmed, overtired, or they don't have the vocabulary to express. So the first thing is to check ourselves and to just make sure that for ourselves, what is coming up for us. So I have a framework that I offer a lot of my clients. It's called CALM, really simple to understand. So first is center ourselves. wait the 60 to 90 seconds. And the reason we do that is so the neurotransmitters are flushed from the body that come up when we have a fight or flight response, when they're slamming doors and things like that, center ourselves. Second is acknowledge their world and what might be going on. So the first is all about us. The second is all about them. And when you have a conversation with them, ask them, what's coming up for you right now? And how can I support? What could help you with this right now? And then L is lean into curiosity. So that goes back to the what questions and asking them what's going on for them. And last is we're maintaining the connection as we go ahead. And we can set limits around that as well. So it doesn't mean that it's okay, but we can say, like I'm here when you're ready to talk, or slamming a door is not an okay thing for me. But let's find a different way for you to express in a way that feels right for you and your nervous system.
We've been reporting this for months. I mean, the condo market is in a free fall. We've heard that term. Prices are sinking, sales are down. You've heard that too, right? The Canadian Real Estate Association says the average price for a condo in July in this country was about $490,000, which is about $80,000 less than the average high in 2022 in April. So it got us thinking, because I think a lot of people are having this conversation. Does that mean now is a good time to buy a condo? Here to help us answer those questions is mortgage broker Leah Zlatkin. Great to have you on this morning.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So let's look at Canada as a whole. So if I said to you this morning, is now a good time to buy a condo in this country, what would you say?
My personal opinion is if you are buying a condo to live in it, to own it, to keep it for the next, 10, 15 years, you don't plan on changing anything having to do with your job, you don't plan on changing your family size, you don't plan on changing who's living there, and you're very happy to go there, absolutely great time to buy a condo for personal use and to hold it for a long time. The market is oversaturated, and as a buyer, you can get a really great deal. So absolutely the right time if you plan on moving in yourself and holding it.
I love the variables
planning
there.
on buying it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, because I think I know what you're going to say, because there are two conversations happening here, right? There's that conversation you just mentioned, which is the longer term, where you're basically not going anywhere, you're not getting into a new relationship, not having more children, whatever it is, that is your condo for, 15, 20 years. But then there's the conversation around, okay, the prices are lower. Should I buy one for the short term to get me into the market, or potentially should I buy a condo as an investment? So can I ask you, can we take a look across the country? I'm going to ask you the same question with the lens. It's going to be a short-term purchase, shorter term saying under 10 years, let's say, or as an investment. Okay, so should I buy a condo in Halifax as an investment?
At this point in time, and I'm a mortgage broker, so please take that as a caveat. Right now, what I'm seeing is it's not a great time to buy in Halifax as an investment property. The reason for this is that there's been an explosion of rental builds, and it's a very oversaturated market. If you plan on flipping that unit, or you plan on trying to get crazy market rents for it, it may not be the right time for that.
Okay, let's turn to Montreal. Is it a good time to buy?
Montreal's an interesting one, actually. So out of all the different places in Canada, Montreal has seen better appreciation on the units over time. There's a history of rentals in Montreal. The units are typically larger than you're finding in terms of condos across Canada. And the economy hasn't been so badly impacted. So when you look at the prices of condos in Montreal, they're about 30 to 40% cheaper than they are in other parts of the country. So depending on whether it's the right unit and whether you have the right tenants, Montreal is a maybe. Toronto's market is extremely oversaturated. There's lots of condos hitting the marketplace. There's excessive supply and very little demand from what we're seeing. So again, I wouldn't necessarily buy a Toronto condo as an investment. And that also has to do with, tenancy laws in Toronto and how little people are actually able to charge for rent these days as rent prices come down, and how much power tenants have over landlords.
Moving west, what about Calgary?
Calgary was pretty hot up until about 6 months ago. Now I think there's some doubts creeping into the market there. People may start walking away from some pre-construction in Calgary. So again, I would hold off on any kind of investments unless you plan on holding for a very long term.
And what about Vancouver?
Again, it's a pretty muted version of Toronto. So I would say the same thing I say for Toronto.
As more people get called back to work full-time, like they have to be in the office, so they're heading back to those urban centers, do you think the demand for living close to the office in a condo will increase, in the big cities at least?
I certainly think that there is a demand for condo living, and I certainly believe that in the big cities, especially where people are being called back to work, you may start seeing hybrid situations where somebody's, staying in a condo Monday through Friday and then going back out to their house further away from the city on the weekends. You might start seeing these kinds of things. Do I think that it's a safe investment strategy and a safe bet that that's absolutely going to happen? No, I don't. But again, if you're buying a larger size unit and you plan on holding it long term, I think you'll be okay, especially with the prices that we have right now. If you're not buying for a long-term strategy, if you're buying for a temporary strategy, it's probably not the right time.
Well, Leah Zlatkin, mortgage broker, thank you for your thoughts this morning. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
The quiet revival is underway. From online Christian influencers to an increased belief in God, religious leaders say Gen Z or Gen Z is reversing a trend of religious decline that's been seen across the West for decades. So it got us wondering, what is driving this hunger for faith? Our producer, Lauren Toffin, takes a closer look at what's happening here in Canada.
St. Paul's on Bloor Street, located in the heart of downtown Toronto, is undergoing a transformation.
When we reopened from COVID, I would say it was our fastest growing demographic. Like, it was kind of instantaneous. We opened the doors the first few Sundays, and I would say the single biggest demographic was Gen Z.
Since the pandemic, the number of young adults at St. Paul's has grown from 45 to nearly 500.
I think COVID gave people a lot of time for introspection. And I think Gen Z is looking around and they're realizing how anxious, lonely, isolated, and fearful they are about the future. And that secularism, its promises of progress and freedom, just simply have not delivered.
21-year-old Bianca Quilliam was among those in her demographic to join St. Paul's after the pandemic. She says the sense of community was a major draw.
I think a lot of young people feel isolated where they're at in their lives, and COVID was a huge proponent in that, but also social media. I think it's a huge imagined community. Like, you feel like you have lots of friends and you feel like you have this huge community, but it's not real.
The increase of young people at St. Paul's reflects a trend that's been seen across the West over the last few years. A recent study in the UK found the number of young adults ages 18 to 24 who believe in God grew from 21% in 2021 to 45% in January of this year.
We are seeing slightly higher rates of religious service attendance, for example, amongst younger age groups. So, for example, in Canada, that 15 to 24-year-old age group, there's about a fifth of them who are attending religious services at least once a month.
In 2024, Canadians ages 18 to 34 attended monthly religious services more than any other generation.
But religion is coming back because people are realizing, I want an anchor for my life. I want a community that will reflect back to me who I am and love me for who I am.
Sarah Hahn from Tyndale University says Gen Z is showing more interest in authentic connections and spirituality than prior generations.
There's just a lot more bigger questions that they're asking, and so they're seeking out answers to those questions. And a lot of them are finding their way into churches to find some of the answers to questions like, what am I here for? What is my purpose in life?
22-year-old Nathan Michael recently returned to St. Paul's after spending years questioning his own beliefs.
You start to ask big questions about the world and who you are, and I just started to ask more questions about faith. Living life well, you have to live an examined life. You have to take stock of wow, what do I have? What are the beautiful good things in my life that I have to be grateful for?
In an effort to expand its reach and meet the demands of younger churchgoers, St. Paul's has opened a small church plant called St. George in Grange Park after nearly a 10-year closure.
Toronto's a city of neighborhoods, right? And we wanted to be able to bring the love of God to another neighborhood.
Since its opening last year, the church has grown to more than 100 members, primarily made up of Gen Z.
And we just want to keep playing our part to bless the city of Toronto and help create more outposts of hope and transformation for as many people in the city as possible.
So Lauren is one of our producers here at Your Morning, and she is joining the three of us now. Hi, Lauren.
Hi. Lauren.
Great piece, by the way. So interesting. Thank you for putting that together. It is a conversation. I don't know about you guys, but I'm having this conversation with friends of mine. I'm witnessing this conversation between people that I know. Religion has been declining for decades. So, Lauren, why is this generation reversing that trend?
Well, I think a lot of it actually had to do with COVID. I spoke with a handful of young people, and I found that the common themes that they were telling me was during the pandemic, they were all looking for like a sense of community, authentic connection. This generation was deeply affected by the pandemic. It was very disruptive to their daily lives. A lot of them were in high school, university at the time, and their classes moved online. A lot of them missed their proms, graduations, and there was also just a pervasive sense of loneliness and isolation.
There's a lot of conversation in this topic around young men that are leading the way. They are the ones who are becoming more religious. What did you find in your research?
Well, I found more of a nuanced story. At least in the US, what the data is actually finding is that it's not so much that young men, especially Christian men, are leading the surge. It's that young women are now leaving religion at a much faster rate. There was a study done by the Public Religion Research Institute. They're a nonprofit in the US, and they actually found that young women, ages 18 to 29, from 2013 to 2024, their rates of religious disaffiliation increased by 11 percentage points. But young men, the same age group, the same timeline, it only increased by 1%. So essentially what they've concluded is that because women have always been historically more religious, the gender gap is not only becoming more narrow, but it could also be a sign that it's kind of on like the pathway of reversal. And there are a lot of theories behind that. You know, it could have to do with just the political climate. A lot of young women are becoming more liberal, whereas young men are becoming more conservative. It could also just be a sign of the times. Simple economics. Women have more autonomy now. The role of religion is no longer as much of a priority in our lives as it may have once been.
Lauren, you mentioned that a lot of people during the pandemic saw online services. So when we talk about online, we obviously have to talk about social media. And how much do you think that this is playing in that resurgence?
I think social media, in this case, has actually proven to be a very valuable tool to not only connect young people to religious services, but also additional organizations. I mean, as I mentioned, in the case of St. Paul's on Bloor Street, a church here in Toronto, their base grew from 45 to 500 young people just after the pandemic. And the majority of them found this church through YouTube and TikTok. But there's also been a rise of religious influencers, and there's a handful of organizations that are essentially trying to mobilize and attract Gen Z to their organization through TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
Yeah, well, you see that with Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk, right? That's the first one that comes
And I
to
wonder
mind.
how much of this, Lauren, stays in the online space and how much is foot traffic through the door? And does it really matter for the leaders of these churches?
Well, in the case, so I actually spoke to a young woman from an organization called the How to Life Movement. They're a U.S.-based Christian organization, and she's Gen Z, and during the pandemic, she actually discovered them through a religious influencer on Instagram, and what they do is they have in-person conferences. They've been in 14 different countries, but they also hold a lot of digital conferences. And they attract young people through TikTok, Instagram. And they have a base here in Canada. This young woman now is the national coordinator of Canada. But their base has been growing. I mean, I looked at their numbers. Yeah, they've got thousands of followers.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Lauren, we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. It's so interesting. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're so glad that you joined us today.
If you want more of these great conversations, don't forget to download or hit subscribe to Your Morning, the podcast. We're on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you're listening right now.
And of course, we'd love for you to watch us live weekday mornings on CTV, CTV News Channel, or the CTV News app. Start your morning with us.